Hey, everybody, welcome to Incendiary. This episode is, of course, between the holidays. And, you know, full transparency, it's going to be a little rough today, but we'll get through it. I'm under the weather. Uh, Jake's not doing fantastic. We're missing so
Did
far.
the hair give it away?
We're missing two guys, but we will get through this, and we're going to have some fun with our guest this week is Tim Fling. Tim is the creator of Water Wars 2288. Welcome, Tim, to the show. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for inviting me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, you bet. When we were on JD Calderon's show, you and I got along really great. So I thought I'd reach out to you and see if you want to come on Incendiary. Now, this one here isn't just a shill show. As we talked about before we go on, we're going to have a debate first, which is sort of like the whole setup. Blue Samurai Zero usually is the person who sets up the debate, but I'll take his place on that one, and then Jake will finish it off. So first off, the debate topic is James Gunn at the DCEU, Hail Champion or Hail Mary? Is he there to save it, or to bring them back from the bleak brink of disaster? Or is this just a Hail Mary pass and it's not going to go well? So we'll be talking about that. And since you're the guest, you get to decide which side of that debate you plan to be on.
I'm a fan of James Gunn, but I enough to where I could add a few of his negatives as well. But I would say I'm on the plus side, and I think that he could potentially rebuild the universe, which I sense this is where this is going to go. And we should also work in will there be any elements of the Snyderverse, which, that's kind of, to me, they kind of go hand in hand here.
Yeah.
Whether or not they should, we can talk about during our debate. So
but I'm pro. I think he's the guy that could pull it off.
Okay. So you're going to be on. So I'm hearing that you're going to be on the side that this is a good move from
I'll take
Warner
good
Brothers.
moves. Yep,
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So since you're on that side, and there's only Dojo and myself right now, the way this goes is you pick who you get to go up against in this debate. So either me or Dojo. And if Blue and Smiling Bandito come in, you can have them choose either side they want to be on, or we can just, when they come in, go as is.
That sounds good, man. And I will. I'll go against you, Jake.
Okay. Cool. All right, good.
So,
I actually wanted this side. I like to be not devil's advocate, but I like to stir the pot a little bit.
So Jake's going to be on the side of this is a Hail Mary pass, probably won't work out. I'm going to be on your side, Tim. Champion, he's the Hail Champion and will do well for DC. So before we get into the debate, we've got a couple of things to show. Number one, let's say hi to the folks in the chat. So we have, let's go right back up to the beginning. Mrs. Good Stuff was the first one here. Hail and well met. Nicholas Gear, also another comic creator. Good to see you. Of course, Bionic Bra on the panel and in the chat. We've got the man who makes the chat every time. Mo Biggs himself is with us. Hey, Mo, glad you're here.
Welcome.
Yes, thanks so much. And then, of course, Bionic Bra is saying hey to everybody. So let me do that to bring us up there. And okay, so last week, of course, our show was about holiday comics. Are they hits or are they hokey? But there's a few things that went on last week that I want to highlight. This should come as no surprise, this first one.
Okay, so I want the smartest person on the debate, so Dojo-kun.
Oh, man.
I know how this game
Shots
is played.
fired.
I choose the most powerful weapons. I choose a form of Dojo-kun.
So yeah, and then of course later on, Smiling Bandito couldn't let that go. I've got my work cut out for me here.
Well, when you're the smartest guy on the panel.
I think you got to him with that one.
Right? And then Blue had a difficulty later.
I'm missing something there. But, whenever I'm missing something there, I've learned don't ask what. Just be like, okay, I'll look it up later. We'll just move along.
So now that we've got our sides decided, there's something I do want to play because potentially one or more of us is debating on a side that we don't actually agree with. So we've got this disclaimer. So yeah, that's come up a number of times. Poor Jake has had to argue against his own side.
Yeah, well, when you also have people that get a little heated under the collar in the comments, I mean, you got to put that little disclaimer up.
And so now we're at the official debate section.
Welcome, everyone, to the official debate section. This debate is being conducted under health and safety protocols designed by the Cleveland Clinic.
Oh, that's reassuring.
Yeah, we're going to be safe because, after all, like I said, I'm under the weather, so you guys need to be safe from all of that. Let's see if we've got any more. Oh, yeah, Nicholas Gear is back in the chat, and it looks like he's already taken some sides here. But let's go ahead and start the debate with you, Tim. Tell us about how you think James Gunn will be a hailed champion for the DCEU.
Oh, okay, great, man. Thanks for asking my opinion. I'll just add a couple of quick ones at the beginning. I'm basing it almost solely on his prior works and which ones I'm a fan of. And specifically, when I say, could he rebuild a adult universe that's sort of in the sense of like a reboot or a remake is the way we're phrasing it, right? Well, when you think about the first one, Dawn of the Dead by him was a remake. And the way that movie, I was a fan of that. I'm talking about the 2004 version.
Okay.
That's a James Gunn film.
Is it? Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's, by the way, that's one of my favorites by him. And I also like, would I say, would he be comfortable with the superhero subject? He definitely would be. And I'm a fan of also Guardians of the Galaxy. The first one, I didn't like 2 and 3, but I like the first one. And he also, is anybody a Brightburn fan? Or do you remember that movie?
Brightburn was all right. It was pretty good.
Yeah, I kind of like that one. Like enough to where I wanted to see more of the character and where he would have gone with it. And the reason why I'm mentioning these are movies that had a little bit of what I would call an ensemble cast, especially Dawn of the Dead, which is really what we're going to be kind of shooting for here, right? Imagine when you say DCEU, the end goal is ultimately we're going to build the Justice League, I would imagine.
Yeah, I would think so.
Right.
Now, the part that's going to be different that I'm not too sure about, like I like the James Gunn portion, and I think that he's potentially the man for the job. I don't think it was the right move to, like, I still like Henry Cavill, and I think that I think they should have kept him somehow, or I don't know what the answer is there, but I realize we're talking total reboot, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, not technically. So it's looking like across the board that he is keeping the Blue Beetle film intact for the launch of the new DCU that he's about to helm. But he's also said that he's going to look at the Justice League animated series and the Young Justice series as the ideas behind being able to hold up the movies that are coming to us.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I was looking at his past films that he directed or wrote also, and my child is now crying as I was about to get to my point. Hang on one second, I'll be right back. I just need to put a binky in his mouth.
Yep. While he goes and takes care of the dad duties, let's look at what Nicholas had to say. He says Gunn will do the same thing to DC that the director of Thor has done, turn the characters into a joke. Now, I partially agree with you there, Nicholas. I think that what they did to Thor was a travesty. I don't like the idea of making him the butt of all the jokes. I thought Ragnarok was bad enough that I still haven't seen Love and Thunder. I almost can't bring myself to watch it because
I was even okay. It's okay to do it once. Like I thought Ragnarok was funny and kind of clever, right? And there was many parts I didn't like, but I liked the humorous Thor. But it was kind of like when they kept going that way, there was nothing left to the character.
Yeah,
like,
it got old really fast.
Right. That should have been like a one-shot kind of thing.
I think that they pushed too hard with the jokes. And what Nicholas is saying is he fears that will be the same thing that happens to the DCEU.
Taking my arguments from me. Hold on.
Okay, I'll prepare my defense against that.
It's okay. So James Gunn, he seems to like, since he's looking back at the Justice League animated series and Young Justice to try and help him out with the projection for the new DCU. He actually has a record of doing that with almost all big movies that he helms. So of course he had the Scooby-Doo films, that he wrote. He didn't necessarily direct them, but he did write them.
Oh, you know what? I didn't realize he wrote them.
And of course he's got Guardians of the Galaxy, the Suicide Squad, and now he's, getting ready to focus on Superman. But yeah, I do agree that they should have kept Henry Cavill. He was my favorite Superman. He just seemed the exact part that you wanted. He wasn't,
Right.
little, skinny, Brandon Ruth. And I think he chose poorly in getting rid of most of what Snyder put together. He could have just done it differently, but I get it at the same time because it was just handled so horridly. And but yeah, I don't want the exact same thing shown to me in the DCU that he gave to me at Marvel. And I'm afraid that he is going to do that. So now, since he's
now,
done,
are you referring to Jake? Are you saying that it'll be too humorous? Is that what you're getting at here?
I'm saying it's going to be a lot of 80s rock and roll.
Oh, okay.
And
I get you. Yeah,
childish
I get it.
jokes.
Yeah, sure.
And so I went back and I actually watched Scooby-Doo today before we got on this debate. And I like I can see what he's going to do with Justice League if he goes by the animated series and stuff. Like he's going to throw in, classic nuances that took place in the shows and then, try and incorporate something with a little bit of a twist. But in the
rebooted James Gunn verse, who do you want to see in your Justice League? Anybody new? I heard Blue Beetle earlier.
Blue Beetle's a good one. I would have left him with Teen Titans. Maybe that's what he's going to do with that. But I would like to see Martian Manhunter get a bigger role. I would love to see Cyborg get his film made. I am an amputee, so that does relate to me on a personal level on things like that. Sure. I do like seeing how they handle that feeling out of place and looking like a freak and stuff like that and stuff, A lot of people that think Cyborg is a boring character, but I honestly think, if you handle it like Venom, overtaking, Brock or, the movie Upgrade, if you saw that, if you handle it kind of like that, where it could almost be a horror film, I think you would have something very unique.
A little body horror.
Exactly, which is what he started out with, Dawn of the Dead and Tromeo and Juliet and stuff like that, Yeah, a little bit of horror, but or Slither.
Well, and let me ask you, and by the way, I didn't see Slither. This reminds me, I got to do that. Let me ask your opinion.
Okay.
And then we can debate this. And actually, is Nick still out there? He can answer this too. In your future model of let's use the Justice League as something to shoot for. What level of humor do you want to see on your Justice League? Let's say that 10 is Thor, Love and Thunder, too much.
Oh God.
And 1 is like dark and no humor, like the Robert Pattinson Batman. Well, we can debate that one separately, but let's say that's the humorless Batman. Okay.
Let's say early Marvel films like Iron Man, the first Iron Man, perfect, being able to represent seriousness and then jokes accordingly. It's not let's have this little touchy-feely second and then slap a joke right on the end of it so it has no meaning whatsoever. So
my position on this one is what James Gunn is going to do is he's looking at the animated series, and I think that's a good move because the animated series that DC puts out is far and away superior to the animated Marvel works. Someone might argue that the Spider-Verse with Miles Morales was on a par with DC, and perhaps it's close, but the Justice League movies that were animated were superior. So if he's looking for that, that might do two things for him. Number one, because they were better written, that might help. But number two, the DCEU was far darker than DC is usually. Usually when you look at DC comics, they are brighter, more heroic, more... Some of the characters are almost to the point of being godlike. So, with Superman...
And that's kind of why I was asking, because I think that when you talk about this, let's just say the future model for now of what this JLA will be like, how humorous is it? Like by its nature of what it is, it's going to have some humor in it.
Right, but look at The Dark Knight. Like it had its moments where Michael Keaton Michael Caine as Alfred would like insert a little bit of humor as he's, giving these little bits of knowledge to Batman and whatnot, but it wasn't overly stated and it wasn't childish. It
Agreed.
wasn't like poop jokes or, just random, dick jokes and stuff like that, which, by the way, Scooby-Doo actually had a lot of. And I'm over it.
I'm on the pro side, but I'll make a quick mention. I'm not a Suicide Squad fan. That's the one I don't like. And to be honest, I don't think
first one or the second one.
I'm not a fan of either one of them.
Okay.
And it's not that I dislike the Suicide Squad in general. I just felt like that movie didn't quite click for me. And as opposed to, you look at some of the other ones, you're like, wow, that's a really well-crafted film.
Right.
Like all the, and I think some of that's the cast. Maybe, I don't know why. Maybe it was just I was not in the best mood that day. But like compared to like the first Guardians to me was about perfect. Right. And also I still, to this day, when I talk about the best opening shots of an apocalyptic film, I use for an example the 2004 remake of Dawn of the Dead because of the speed with which they show it happen. And if you remember, he's the director, right? And they show it in like sort of these long camera shots. And what I mean by that, like it starts very close, like the girl is biting her father's neck, the zombie baby girl. And then when it cuts away, it's a scene like from a helicopter of the city, various explosions and gas stations blowing up, that kind of thing. But the way he does it, it starts really close and then it quickly goes out you can see the whole world ending. And it's a really very well crafted scene. And I like his directing style. So really the question we were debating is, do I think he would be the guy to rebuild the universe? And the reason why I say yes to this question is because of the way he had the characters in primarily those two. For my example, I'll use Dawn of the Dead and Guardians of the Galaxy, right? Guardians of the Galaxy. And I think that to this day, because I mean, they're not exactly new movies, if you know what I mean, but they still hold up as far as examples of solid character development. That's one man's opinion.
You may have made a great point when you talked about the cast of Suicide Squad versus Guardians of the Galaxy. And I think the reason for that is Suicide Squad didn't seem to be an ensemble cast. It was almost as if you felt that the actors didn't want to be there. So it sort of took you out of the story. Whereas Guardians of the Galaxy really seemed like they were all having fun. You could almost tell that they enjoyed what they were doing. And that sort of translates into working well as a misfit team of, galactic superheroes, if you will. Totally agree. I think that he can pull this together. Now, I saw Nicholas, he's been helpful in the comments here. He's talking about Ted Kord. That's Blue Beetle. Booster Gold movie should be hilarious. And you know what? It could be, Nicholas, but I worry that it's going to be like the dick jokes and poop jokes like we were talking about with Blue Beetle and Booster Gold. They were both in the Justice League. I know that they were later written to be part of the Teen Titans.
Along with James Gunn, doing good with Guardians of the Galaxy and Dawn of the Dead. Peacemaker shows me exactly, if you haven't seen the show Peacemaker, it is fun, but it is the exact same thing every episode.
Oh,
it is it's dick jokes, it's F-bombs everywhere. It's just
is Cena in that? Is he
John Cena, as Peacemaker.
I haven't seen that one yet.
Okay, well, it's fun, but it's the same thing to me over and over.
It's just repetitive.
It's what he gave me in Guardians of the Galaxy, but with an R rating.
Now, does Gunn intend to write all of this stuff or just direct?
I would imagine as CEO, he's going to overlook it. I don't know about writing and directing. Okay. I think if he goes with the Kevin Feige route, then he's going to have a lot of say in what takes place, but I don't know if he'll actually be touching any directing. He might get a great director and great writers in the writer room, which I think is what happened with Guardians, because Marvel holds their babies very close to the chest, and they do not allow for a bunch of tomfoolery to take place.
Well, also too, Marvel is very, very well known for their intricate plot line development because all of these movies are canon and in the same universe. So there's not just Easter eggs, but a lot of things that occur in this one have to tie into the next one, and, you know, phase 2, 3, 4, etc. So there's a lot of meaningful things that happen in these movies that are going to be carried forward, and they have to be mindful of that.
Right.
Well,
so
Nicholas has a. Go ahead, man. I didn't mean to talk over you.
Oh no, you're fine. You know, but you know, with Avengers and everything, it was Joss Whedon doing most of the directing, right? And with you know, Snyderverse, it was Snyder, and then you had Joss Whedon come in and have to overtake Justice League for Snyder, and you saw an amazing difference between somebody having to pick up the pieces and just put together last minute what he could versus what Snyder was going to be. And was Snyder Cut this amazing thing? No, not exactly. It was better than Joss Whedon coming in and, you know, doing what he had to. Like, you can definitely see it in the different scenes of what was Joss Whedon versus Snyder. But I think it's because that they didn't have faith in Snyderverse that they wanted to continue with it. Too much damage was already done, so that's why they wanted to restart. James Gunn, I think it just might be a lost cause because you're coming in right after Wonder Woman 84 and the Flash movie is still coming out. So he's picking and choosing what is allowed to stay and what is going to be rewritten, which is why who played Aquaman? What's his name?
Momoa.
Jason Momoa coming in as Aquaman, and now they're talking about transitioning him to Lobo. I mean, yeah, he fucking looks the part of Lobo. If you give him a Hulk Hogan persona, he will be Lobo. But I think
isn't there an Aquaman movie coming out though?
Huh?
Isn't there an Aquaman movie on the docket?
Aquaman 2, I don't know if they're going to release it or if they're going to scrape it. It's still on the cutting board. And I don't like, there's like, he scrapped Henry Cavill's Superman, which I think is BS. There was so much potential because we already got the beginning stories. I don't need more fucking origin stories of the same character.
Hell no.
I don't need to see Batman's parents being killed. I don't need to see Superman coming from Krypton, being raised as a baby. I do want to see more of Jonathan and Martha Kent playing as his role models and basically his beacons of, you know, knowledge and understanding of the world. I think we need to get away from Lois Lane. I think that poisons Superman because it's not her that fucking like makes him human. It's him living among humans. Can we get that? And yeah, I think did we lose Timothy?
We did. I didn't kick him.
Nor did I.
Keep going. I'll reach out.
Okay. But yeah, I think James Gunn is definitely a Hail Mary. I don't think he's proven to do his own personal spin on things without the basic elements already put in place for him. And I go back to, you know, Guardians of the Galaxy already having you know, a history, Scooby-Doo having its history. He needs elements put in place for him that he can pick apart and position himself. I don't think he'll be directing or writing any of it. I think he's just going to be putting everything in the direction that he wants to see fit.
I assumed there would be some directing or at least, well, I guess that part remains to be seen, but I didn't figure he'd probably be writing it.
Yeah. So, yeah, because Guardians of the Galaxy, that's completely different from Peacemaker, right? But he's given both credit as writers on both things. Now, I think that he was given more leeway with Peacemaker because he loves that kind of, you know, dark, gritty humor versus the lightheartedness that Guardians gave you. But, I mean, yeah, it remains to be seen, but I do think it's a Hail Mary more than a hailed champion coming in.
If he pulls it off, I think it'll be if he takes the Feige stance and oversees it rather than writes it. If he writes it, it's going to be sophomoric jokes, in my opinion. But if he just oversees it, I think he's got an eye for what can be done with the universe, and I think he'll do a great job of it, so long as he puts the right people in place and doesn't get writers who have some kind of agenda. Just tell superhero stories, please.
Oh man, there's going to be an agenda. You know there is.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's the way of it. And I was asking the question earlier, and I think it all will boil down to this, which is how much humor is the correct amount in a JLA movie, because the JLA is inherently a little bit silly, right? I mean, they don't have the Avengers were always a little bit more kind of sci-fi, and the JLA was always, fighting a giant starfish.
Yeah, but as the JLA, I mean, they were able to pull from everybody's roster. I mean, you had Lex Luthor working with Cheetah, you had him working with Darkseid, you had all these different elements, and then with Young Justice, they just fucking made everybody part of the Legion of Doom.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
I mean, it was still done well, but it's because oh shit, who was writing on that one? But it's because two people who were at DC and know these characters inherently were writing the shows. They weren't given off to just anybody. It wasn't Warner Brothers saying, "Oh my God, we got to catch up to Marvel. Just throw shit out there and see if it sticks to the wall." It was planned. It was taken care of, and it did really well. I mean,
well, and there's a lot of elements in a good JLA movie, and I'm kind of using that as our benchmark because that's kind of what we're headed toward, right? But it's like, you have the darkness of the Dark Knight, you have the heroism of the Man of Steel, and then you start to get a little off track depending on who you go with. The Martian Manhunter, weird, right?
Yeah.
Wonder Woman, which is a little mythology, almost a little silly, kind of. I don't mean silly, you know what I mean? More mystical,
far-fetched.
Yeah, but far-fetched, that's a better way to put it. But I think that's okay, because people are looking for a little bit of that in the movie, but what is the correct level? Because you talk about something like Love and Thunder, that's not the correct level.
No, not at all. So,
right. A little bit of snarkiness works.
Go ahead.
A little bit of snarkiness works well because, for example, the like you alluded to earlier, Iron Man, the first one, came out, and most of the topic was pretty serious. On the other hand, Robert Downey Jr. was able to pull off that sarcastic humor at what I feel was the appropriate amount and the appropriate timing. So, I mean, I'm not saying that they should get him to do anything. I'm just saying that with that kind of writing, with the right amount of lightheartedness in between the serious beats, it could work.
Well, right. And by the way, you're talking about something that's a little different because Robert Downey Jr. is like a little funny and has a little, he had like humorous lines, where in like Love and Thunder, it's like gags. It's like an airplane movie. I'm exaggerating. Let me stick closer to the point. The scenes are shot like comedy scenes. You know what I mean by gags? Like, look, is this Saturday Night Live or what am I watching here? Whereas you talk about Iron Man, he might say something humorous, but it's not shot for laughs.
Right. So I was actually I'm a Thor fan because I love mythos. That's my bag. And I was so hyped when they were getting ready to do a Thor film, and it was okay. It wasn't anything great. It just
you're talking about the first one. You're talking about the first one now.
Yeah, the first one. It was just a basic thing. What really helped it out was the dynamics between the family. That was what made that film.
Sure.
The whole Jane Foster and shit like that, and the destroyer coming down, to cause 2 seconds of hell. I mean, that wasn't what it was. It was about growth of an individual and the dynamics with a foster brother who feels misplaced and, basically looked down upon and stuff versus the firstborn child, the heir to the throne. But when the Dark World came out, Loki butchered it for Malekith. I was waiting to see that dark elf do some damage and actually have some kind of story behind him, and they just ruined it because too many people loved Loki. And then you see where they're starting to change it up because it wasn't pulling in the money that they wanted to for these mythological creatures, and they went with Ragnarok.
Sure.
And it did well. I liked it. I thought it did good with bringing in some humor. I thought it got a little too ridiculous with naked ass Hulk, because in Love and Thunder they did a naked ass Thor. They were like, all right, let's just show asses in all of Thor's films now. And you can actually see the progression of how ridiculous it gets by Thor's outfit.
You know what? Speaking of asses in Thor, let's talk about Grandmaster for a minute.
Oh,
shit. I'm a huge Goldblum fan. I really am. In most of his work, I think he's brilliant. And when I heard he was cast as Grandmaster, I thought, oh, perfect. But they wrote him to be a buffoon.
Yep.
I mean, he was befuddled. He was scatterbrained. He couldn't finish a thought. And in the end, he's supposed to be an elder of the universe, right? Celestial, powerful. And at the end, if you haven't seen it, spoiler alert, he wants to like negotiate with the people of the planet. It's like, what? He would crush them all. It's like, what are we doing here? And then in that same movie, Thor screams like a little girl when he's electrocuted. Hello, God of Thunder.
Yep.
And I mean, just time after time, there's so many things that they did wrong with Ragnarok. And if Love and Thunder is as bad as I've heard,
it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. Yeah. And man, I haven't even seen it the whole way through. I keep saying, I'll come back to it. And that's always a bad scene because I love that type of movie. So if I like get stuck on stuff, that's usually a bad tell.
No doubt.
But in my opinion, the Marvel universe, there was a couple of stumbles, and that was one. Well, we're talking about the most obvious one right here. But what they should have done, I always say this, if you lean into the source material, like we were saying before, like we like the kind of heavy gravitas Thor with the quasi Shakespearean dialogue. The first one directed by Kenneth Branagh, the Shakespearean, I thought it was terrific.
It worked.
And they should have went more that way, and more, the great villains of the Thorverse. And by the way, I'm not saying I didn't want something funny, but that's where they kind of dropped the ball on Ant-Man. They should have just put the pedal to the floor with the humor in Ant-Man, because he was designed to be he's Ant-Man. You know what I'm saying? They could have really done even more humor. And the scary one,
Paul Rudd for that.
Yeah, right. Guy who never ages. And then of course, Doctor Strange would have been then the scary one to round it out. And it would be, I would say the same thing, lean into it and make it just really super, like almost like a horror movie.
Well, yeah, I mean, Sam Raimi directed Multiverse of Darkness, and I mean, even when he did Spider-Man 2, when Doc Ock was passed out on the surgery table, it got that little, horror element to it with his tentacles going out and just mass murdering everybody in that room. I mean, the girl's fingernails were clawing the ground, and you saw the steel of the ground like coming up under nails. I thought that was great. And if they actually would like hold to it, when they do Doctor Strange or Ghost Rider, get Sam Raimi back, because I want more of the dark elements.
I like that too.
But leave Nicolas Cage out of it.
I don't want Nicolas Cage in anything Marvel or DC.
I've seen him in a couple of things where he was good, but only a couple. The rest, he's an overactor. He's far too enamored with his own ability. And no, his take, especially in Ghost Rider 2, Spirit of Vengeance, that was like the worst Marvel movie if you don't count Howard the Duck.
You don't like Howard the Duck? Come on.
Well, there's a couple of scenes that make Howard the Duck worth watching, but let's not talk about that. We'll get on a tangent.
Right.
In fact, speaking of tangents, we are at about 20 minutes to the top of the hour, and I know we've got a lot of things to talk to Tim about his project. He's got several in the hopper. He's been around. He's a prolific comic creator and writer. So what I'd like to do now is share my screen here. Just a second. Let me go here. We're going to add this to the stream. So Tim's project that just ended on Kickstarter is Water Wars 2288. But he and I have been talking behind the scenes about bringing it to IndieGoGo, and it sounds like he's well on his way to doing that. But before we talk about sign-up pages and how close that is, let's have him go through this campaign with us, talk about Water Wars and why we should be excited when it comes to IndieGoGo, because I think we should.
Well, thanks for that great intro, Brian. I really appreciate that, and the kind words mean a lot to me. I'll tell you, I'm a relatively new guy, My name's Timothy Fling. I'm a publisher from York, Pennsylvania. I started about 5 years ago writing comic book scripts. And at the time, what I had done, there was like a class that you could attend called the Bullpen. And a guy by the name of Martin Dunn was running that. And what it was like a little meeting session that I would go to. And it was like a little classroom. They would run you through some of the basics of how you would make a comic and so forth. And, I learned how to do it. And that was kind of like a fun little exercise. But after I got done the first one, I realized, hey, I learned something here. What would happen if I got like the best artists and the best stories and the best production quality in the world? And I realized that sounds like a overstatement, but you know how it is when you're daydreaming, you start to think about stuff like that. And
exactly.
I said, I'm going to make exactly the kind of story I want. I'm the writer, by the way, fellas. We're all writers in this room, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I got a deep admiration for artists, but I do not do any of my own art. So I started writing The Water Wars, and it was just about 2018. And the idea was it's a collection of short stories. Now, the short stories, if you like this kind of thing, they are all connected. And you can go back and read through them, and you can even read them in chronological order if you like, but you don't have to. Each story is what I call a standalone, and they're framed in the style of writers like Ray Bradbury, Richard Matheson, Rod Serling. Like if you like short stories like The Twilight Zone, you'll probably like Water Wars. And what I mean by that is that each short story has a little bit of what we call a twist ending. Like they always, something will happen and it's not necessarily what you thought. In this example that you're seeing in front of you, this is volume 4. And in this issue, our two main characters, they stumble into the lair of a genetically enhanced minotaur. And what happens is, you have your two characters there and you're kind of rooting for them during the course of the story. And at the end, she's leaving and she says, I don't get it. Why would he battle to the death just to protect a bunch of old broken columns? And you see the Minotaur walking back through the field and the door opens and his wife comes out and her hand's on her stomach. She's pregnant. And it turns out that, the Minotaur is a very humanized character. He's just protecting his territory. He has nothing against either one of these two. And our hero, she turns to the other one. She says, wait a minute, are we the bad guys? They just realized that they were the bad guys in the story. The other guy was just protecting his pregnant wife. So that gives you an idea. Yeah, it gives you an idea of what a Water Wars story is like.
Okay. And the fact that this is volume 4 is very telling. That means that you've been at this a while. They've been pretty successful on Kickstarter too, haven't they?
They have. And that's the part that I'm kind of new to it in Kickstarter. When I made the first one, that was Water Wars #1. And in those days, what you do is you would make them and print them out and you'd take them to Comic Cons. And I went to Baltimore Comic Convention in 2019. It was 2019 when the first one came out. And I was pushing that. And I have another book that was called Socket, which I'm still promote that too. But in those days, I hadn't heard of Kickstarter yet. Right.
Okay.
So, now it was already out, just I hadn't used it yet. And then I said, well, I will run my next one on Kickstarter. And that was a book that I was making with a gentleman by the name of Erwin Arosa, who Jake knows. And that was the Hunchback story, which is what they call it. It's one of those wordless stories where it's only told with the art and the sound effects, you see.
Oh, those are nice sometimes. Those can be very effective.
And like I say, these are all short stories, right? So that one's like a 13-page or 15-page or whatever it is. But then, like the stories they're kind of all under this umbrella of the Water Wars, which is a post-apocalyptic dystopian future where we sometimes joke all the dystopias are happening at once. Like there's a robot revolution, there's a pandemic going around, robots are chasing everybody to get their blood type. It's a real nasty, post-apocalyptic world. And they always have sort of what I call a thoughtful, or in some cases, emotional ending. And what I mean by that, since we're all writers here, I write my stories backwards. And what I do is I start with the ending, which in my stories is what I call the emotional component, the heart of the story. And it ends on some kind of moment, right? And then you write it backwards of how they got to that moment.
Really? That's different.
Yeah. Yeah, that's how I do it. That's how, it's how mystery writers write their novels.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, you know, you start out with who did it. It's Colonel Mustard in the dining hall with the candlestick, and then you write backwards. But that's what I do, because some of the Water Wars stories, in my greatest review that I'm so pleased with to this day, somebody described them as sad and beautiful stories.
Oh, very
And
nice.
you know, yeah, and that they do have an element of sort of sadness in many of the stories. And it usually one of the things you'll pick up as you're reading the stories, there's a strong peace message. Like our main character you see in the foreground there, she's Citizen 0313. The citizens of the future are numbered. And anyway, it's her blood type carries the cure to this pandemic, and that is why the robots are chasing her. And anyway, to make a long story short, she turns up in some way in most of the stories, whether she's passing through, or like I say, number 2 was her escaping from the government camp. You know, number 3, it shows how she lost her arm. Number 4, it shows, you know, like each one is like a chapter in her life. And all the Water Wars stories, they tend to be female protagonists.
So let me ask you this about the Water Wars. If you're looking at this issue in particular, for example, is there more than one story in this issue?
This one's just one story. It's a longer
One
one.
story.
It's
Okay.
and this one is the Minotaur story that I was telling you about. And it's a 24 pager, so that's standard length. And it also comes with one page in the back that details the history of the Water Wars. And we hit a couple of the cool stretch goals. So you'll see some things like you got multiple covers there. There's the Erwin Arosa Star Wars homage.
Beautiful art.
Isn't that cool? And since this was our 4, you see it says episode 4 instead of volume 4. So it sounds
So for those of you who aren't real sure, Jake has a special place in his heart for Erwin Arosa, because Erwin is doing the covers and interiors for Cobalt. And Cobalt Death Stalks Us is in demand right now on IndieGoGo. So make sure you check that out. The link is in the description below, as well as, of course, ways to get a hold of Tim's work. Smiling Bandito, sign up for his Black as Hell, and Projectile Reptile by Dojo Kun Comics is down there as well. But that's what Jake's talking about when he says, oh yeah, loves Erwin Arosa.
Yeah, and it's great that, you know, for that shout out. And I was so happy because I'm familiar with the book, and I think your book looks terrific.
Oh, thank you, man.
Yeah.
I can't get over that realistic painterly look.
Yeah, it sells. Even, you know, he could show somebody doing their laundry, and it's exciting.
Right? You could just be the basket of clothes.
So in the case of the Water Wars, it starts out with the premise that there's a solar flare and it contaminates the Earth's water supply. In the chaos that ensues, they form into water gangs, and you know, they're defended water corridors, and it becomes the rare, precious resource of the future. While this is going on, there's also a pandemic that breaks out, and the citizens are being herded into these camps. They're called nests. That's a National Emergency Settlement Territory, a nest. There's lots of acronyms,
Nice.
in Water Wars. If you like this type of sci-fi, you'd probably like it. And anyway, the idea is that the girl escapes from the camp, and then the rest is Water Wars. It's everything. It's her adventures that happens to her out in the wastelands. And I kind of pitch it to people, like, if you like female heroes like Ellen Ripley from Alien, or if you like Imperator Furiosa from Mad Max, you will like Citizen 0313. That's the hero of Water Wars 2288. And there's multiple
Lawrence for those female.
Yeah.
Right.
And the idea is, you see, we got her partner there. We've got the Minotaur. The idea of Water Wars is there's lots of really weird characters.
So I wanted to ask you, I passed by them while you were talking. I didn't want to interrupt you. Who did this cover?
Oh, that's a guy by the name of Mannix Francisco. His work is beautiful. This is my second time with him. Or wait, maybe this is my first. But the one you're seeing there will be it's shipped in a chrome enhanced version. We call it the radioactive cover. What it is, it's a 2-layer printing process where one layer is a chrome and the second layer is ink, and it creates a shining. You know, when you tilt it, the cover shines at you. It's really cool, man. Yeah,
It'll really pop on all the prosthetics.
It'll pop. Yeah, and what we do in our case is it's not the whole image, which is cool in its own way. But this is the one you're seeing there. It'll be the logo, and the 2 characters will be chromed.
Nice.
It'll look almost embossed, if you know what I mean.
Okay, and now tell us about this one. This is killer.
Yeah, now this what you're seeing there. I'm so proud of this guy. He was the interior and cover artist for Water Wars 3. His name is Renan Shoddy. And what you're seeing there, that's actually an homage cover from a book back in the 70s called Bring On the Bad Guys. And it was all the Marvel. Yeah, do you know it? It's all the Marvel villains. Yeah. Now that I say that, you see they're even in the same pose and all that stuff.
Right.
And
you know
what you're seeing there, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Well, I was going to say what you're seeing there, that's all the villains of the Water Wars universe on the cover. This is our Bring On the Bad Guys.
I always knew Marilyn Monroe was evil.
Right.
In our case, this gives you some insight. That is actually a robot replica of Marilyn Monroe set to snare.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. She's an evil one. So if you like robot Marilyn Monroe, you'd probably like Water Wars.
Is that the Minotaur right here?
Yeah, the Minotaur is there in the very back.
Okay.
And you see the kind of
more indie creators need to take note from you, because everybody's just doing black and red covers, but the way the colors are in every individual cover here is just fantastic.
Thanks for saying that.
The orange and yellows on, volume 4 and stuff like that. It's so good.
We're shooting for a very pro production look, and that was.
Well, you're nailing it.
Yeah, thanks, man. That means a lot to me. And we're really trying to, guys. I don't know if we'll get into this subject too much tonight, but I'd like to just touch on it. Which one of the reasons why I'm moving over to IndieGoGo, I don't necessarily feel like I'm making the same kind of books that some of the other people are that I see in my travels, and I want to be affiliated more with. Yeah, like, don't take this as me ripping on anybody, but some of these books, it's like, what is going on there? I don't want to be affiliated with that. So, the people that I've met from Kickstarter have been terrific. But the people that I've met from IndieGoGo, even the first handful of them, have been really terrific to me.
We strive for that for newcomers.
Yeah, well, so
Right?
here's what's going on, Reddy, because people have said to me now, this is Brian mentioned, that's number 4 that just wrapped. Okay, I just released the digital version on Christmas Eve, and then the print files I think I'll submit next. Within a week or two. So this is actually happening right now. So, but my next book is right on the burner behind it, which is another Irwin book, and that's called Call of the Cryptid. So you'll see I've got a pretty big 2023 coming, and the very first thing that will happen, you'll see the entire Water Wars catalog, which is something like, if you count all the variants, it's something like 20 books or more. And
Wow.
it'll be coming to IndieGoGo. And it'll be like a shop, like an online shop, and it'll include some special things for IndieGoGo followers. And it'll also, I forget if I told you, we write songs that go with the story. So there'll be a couple. Yeah, and so there'll be a couple of new theme songs that go with the IndieGoGo. Like if we hit X amount, like the one for this one, please check it out. It's on YouTube. It is a Minotaur themed heavy metal song.
Oh my gosh.
And you're going to say, oh my gosh, it actually really sounds like that. You'll see what I mean.
That's metal. That's definitely metal.
Yeah. Yeah. Our songs are all a little bit metal. So, and it's something, I've got a friend who's very good at this. I mean, it's a 32 track digital recording. It's like, you're going to be like, holy mackerel. When he said songs, I figured like, like something cheap, but you're going to be like, well, it sounds like an album.
Well, I can't speak for Jake, but I can tell you, as a fan of Metallica, Megadeth, Disturbed, you've got my attention.
You just named all the things that we're emulating. So you have to check it out.
Okay.
I am down with the sickness.
I saw Disturbed live actually a couple of times, and man, they were so good live. Like they were doing medleys of all these things that you would never think that they would play. And of course it was like the Disturbed version. It was like really cool, man. Well, they did Sounds of Silence, which I guess that's what kind of got that started.
Yeah, like when I do karaoke.
Oh yeah?
Love that one. Yeah. I do their version.
I'm a musician myself. I'm a bassist and I play a little bit of guitar, but this is when we make these songs, you're going to laugh. I do the melodies and I hum the line into the iPhone and I send the melody to the guy and he writes the song based on that.
Oh my gosh.
That's actually really cool.
That is cool.
Yeah. And because what we're shooting for is there's supposed to be like a little John Williams ish, if you know what I mean. Like,
Yes.
ba, 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 ba,
Right.
ba, ba, ba. Like you can tell right away in a couple of notes if it's good or not.
So will you have tiers that are similar to what we'll find on Kickstarter?
Yes, and matter of fact, if you're looking at Volume 4, it'll be very similar to this, but now it'll include all the stuff from Volume 4 as well on the IndieGoGo. Because what you have there, let me explain the catalog because it's a little bit large at this point. This is we started writing these stories in 2019 is when they started coming out, but there's 4 issues of Water Wars 2288. Okay, that's the 2288 series is the series with the 2 female heroes, and it tends to be like classic sci-fi adventure stories.
Okay.
So there's 4 issues of that already out, and there's a couple of covers of each, so there's 10 or so or 12, whatever. Then there's the Water Wars Chronicles, which you're seeing as you're looking through, which is the books that I've done with Irwin, which is Lost at Sea, The Hunchback, and that is a little bit more like what some people might consider harder sci-fi. It's along the lines of I, Robot, or it's not as comic-y. It's more graphic novelish, if you follow.
All right.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. And also in line with that, there's also a collected version of that. That's the one you see in there called the Eisenhower, USS Eisenhower Owner's Manual.
Let me see.
And that is a...
Oh, we're here.
There you go. USS Eisenhower Operator's Manual. And what you see there, that is a 104-page graphic novel. And it's all the work of that Irwin and I did together in one volume. And each story has like a frontispiece art piece in front of it. And it has a chrome enhanced cover.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
So yeah, for those of you who are as interested in this as I am, which is to say a lot, we are going to watch for this to come out on IndieGoGo, which he's working on right now. Sounds like it'll be out in early 2023.
Yeah.
In fact, what I'd like you to do, Tim, is let me know when that happens. I'll start tweeting that out to my
That'd
followers.
be great.
And
Man,
Facebook.
Brian, thank you. That's awesome because, like I say, the IndieGoGo thing is new to me. And, this is the way for me to splash in with, like I still have to build my
I
network.
see what you did there. Splash
yes.
in with Water Wars.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very good.
Absolutely. So, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure how to market the IndieGoGo yet. I do a mailing list, and I do some of the, YouTube stuff. I'll have you come on and we'll talk on YouTube as well. I got to tell you, you're doing something here, which is genius. And I'll tell you what it is. You like to hear my opinion of why you're a genius?
Well, yes.
Because when you're talking about the show, it has content. Like you had the debate and like, that's what consumers like. They like content. And unfortunately, you probably seen me on some of the podcasts and stuff. I sometimes do 20 or 30 podcasts a month, something like that. But it's like they're all the same, man. Honestly, it's all of us going, hey, buy my book. And I'm afraid I get lost in the noise. So I'm happy to come on and talk about the James Gunn stuff. Thanks for asking me.
Oh, yeah,
Cool,
no problem.
awesome.
I had a show called the Dojo Kun Shill Shack, and it went for 40-some episodes, and it was a lot of fun. I had a lot of great creators come on the show. But like you're alluding to, it was just a shill show, and it got to be just, a carbon copy of so many other shows. So that's why I got together with Blue Samurai Zero, with Smiling Bandito, and with Bionic Bra to talk about what can we put together that might be a little different, but still feature a creator and their work. So I'm glad you were able to come on. We're at the top of the hour. So what I'd like to do now is, first of all, thank you for coming on, Tim. I want to thank those of you who are here in the chat. Really appreciate your participation throughout that debate section. Hope you give this Water Wars 2288 a chance in 2023. Wow, it's hard to even say that. Where can we find you on the socials, Tim?
I think the one I'm getting the most traction from right now is Facebook, which I'm Timothy B. Fling. Or just about any way you can look up Water Wars, you can find me. You can Google Water Wars. I'm waterwars2288.com. I'm also earthdogstudios.com.
Okay.
I'm fairly well known around Kickstarter indie circles, in the sense that I will digital swap with anybody who's doing a campaign. So if you have a crowdfunding campaign and you want a free bonus, reach out to me and I'll give you a free digital PDF of one of my books. And it's something that, you can get a perceived
that's wicked.
value. Yeah, I'll do that for you guys anytime.
I like that. I do have a live campaign, and so does Jake. So we may be in touch to do that very same thing.
Yeah, and hey, I got some good choices too, depending on what kind of books you're doing. I did it on my on volume 4 that you guys just looked at. I do digital swap, and in my package, if you back one of my books, you get 23 free digital comics.
Wow.
And what I do, I make pals with guys like you, and then what your value gets like a little bigger each time.
I
That's
never
right,
thought
yeah.
about that. That is excellent.
More and more eyes on the project can only help.
Yeah, and I'll gladly, man, I tell you, if I got one customer from it, it's great advertising, right?
Yeah, and plus it's good conversation. It was great to have you on. So
Yeah.
let us know when that goes live, and not only will I sign up, but maybe we can even have you back on the show once things are going.
I'd love
we'll
to.
have, of course, a different debate.
I'd love to, man. I dig your show, man. Good job.
Thank you, Jake. Where can we find you on the socials?
You can find me on Instagram or Twitter as Bionic Bruh or TaleEnd Studio. And, on Facebook, you can find me under Jake Adams. And that about covers it for me.
And, of course, you'll find him here on Incendiary every Wednesday night at 10 o'clock Eastern. You can find me at Dojo Kun Comics pretty much everywhere. I try to be consistent with that. There's a short form video that posts every night at midnight on Dojo Kun Comics on YouTube. So, hopefully you'll all take a chance to subscribe to both see this show and those short form shows. Those short form shows cover a wide variety of news topics and entertainment topics. Just whatever strikes my fancy. I'll do I call it the 60-second subject. It's rarely 60 seconds, but that's okay. If it's 2 minutes to cover a topic, that works for me. So hopefully it'll work for you as well. Let me drop back over here to Bran, and thank you all for being here. Really appreciate your time, and we'll see you next week on Incendiary.